So, good morning. So we shall do a question. We shall do a question for the sitting of November 2018. November 2018. November 2018. Question number 3, part B. November 2018. Question number 3, part B. We check November 2018. Question number 3, part B. November 2018. Question number 3, part B. So that November 2018, question 3, part B. So the question is on page 34. The question is on page 34. The question is on page 34. So that question is still on the exchange rate in the money market, the forward market, and also the currency option. So we can go through the question. We can go through the question. Go through the questions. So it is November 2018. November 2018. Question 3, part B. So that question reads that Chikiri Investment Limited is a company based in Kenya. It is a company based in Kenya. The company exported goods on credit to a farm in the US. To a farm in the US. To a farm in the US. So the company expects to receive US dollars 800,000 in 1 year's time. So the current spot exchange rate is meant to be $1 US is equivalent to 60 Kenyan shillings. $1 US is equivalent to 60 Kenyan shillings. However, Chikiri Investment Limited created a probability distribution. So it created a probability distribution. For the forward spot rate in 1 year as follows. So they have given the probabilities 0.2, 0.5, and also 0.3 for each of those forward spot rates. Then additional information, not number 1, 1 year put option on the US are available with an exercise price of Kenyan shilling 63 and a premium of 4 shillings per share. Sorry, per $1 US. Then not number 2, 1 year call option are available on the US with $1 US with exercise price of 60 and a premium of 3 Kenyan shillings per $1 US. Not number 3, future spot rate is estimated in the year's time at Kenyan shilling 62 per $1 US. So the following are the currency market annual rates. The following are the currency market annual rates. So they have given you Kenya and the US annual rates, the borrowing and also the deposit. So now required Roman letter 1, determine whether the forward market age, money market age, or the currency option age will be the most appropriate hedging strategy for the company. Will be the most appropriate hedging strategy for the company. So normally the best way to start with the forward. Forward market is normally a shorter process. So if we can start with the one for the forward market, we start with the forward market. is that of the forward market. So when it comes to the forward market, we need to calculate what is supposed to be the expected forward rate, because it was subjected to probabilities. The expected forward rate was subjected to probabilities. So we calculate the expected forward rate. It was subjected to the probabilities. So those probabilities, you can be able to, the first one is 61. The first one is 61. Probability of it occurring is 0.2. Then you add, the second one is 63. Probability of it occurring is 0.5. Then the last one is meant to be 67. Probability of it occurring is 0.3. So when you add them together, it will be able to give you the expected forward rate. It will be able to give you the expected forward rate. The expected forward rate. So what should be our expected forward rate? 63.8. So we have been given, we get a figure of 63.8. So now the exchange rate is at 63.8 Kenyan shillings is equivalent to $1 US. So the exchange rate now is that the 63.8 Kenyan shillings is equivalent to $1 US. But the amount that was given up there in the first paragraph is 800,000 US dollars. Is 800,000 US dollars. So when you convert them into the Kenyan shillings, that amount will be equivalent to how much? That amount should be equivalent to how much? Sorry? Just 51 millions. Exactly like that. Yeah, so that is now the amount you will receive in the forward market. That's now the amount you receive in the forward market. So now after the forward market, we need now to go to the money market. We need now to go to the money market. After the forward market, we now check the money market. So when it comes now to the money market, this person is in Kenya, and in the money market, I was able to say that instead of you waiting to be paid after 1 year, you go to US, you identify the bank of your customer, you use that customer as security to borrow in the US. Then that money you convert it at the spot rate into the Kenyan shillings, whereby you go and deposit in the Kenyan bank to earn interest for the next 1 year. So you compare them to see what will be the effect. So that was now the forward market. Let us now check something on the money market. Let us now check about the money market. We now check about the money market. We can now confirm about the money market. The money market. And see what we shall get from that point. So when it comes to the money market, there were 3 steps. The first step is amount to be borrowed. The first step, you are to compute amount to be borrowed. What to calculate amount to be borrowed. Because you have your customer in US who is supposed to pay you after 1 year. So the best thing, you go to US, you borrow money in the bank in the US using your customer as your security. So we need to get the present value of that amount to be borrowed. So amount to be borrowed will be the same as the present value, which is supposed to be given by the future value 1 divided by R. Like that. So amount to be borrowed will be now expressed in that. So the future value is the amount we receive after 1 year. So this question had said that amount was supposed to be how much? Is 800,000. So I want you to check the borrowing rate in the US. What are we given as the borrowing rate in the US in the note number 4? The borrowing rate in the US is 12%. So this time is per annum. You will be paid at the end of the year. So it is already per annum. So that's 12%. You use it the way it is. It is 0.12. It will be 0.12 at that level. It will be 0.12 at that portion. So that is now the step number 1, amount to be borrowed. So how much is that here? 714. When you round off to be 280. So that's now the amount to be borrowed. That's now the amount to be borrowed. So the second step, you convert that amount at the spot rate into the Kenyan shilling. So step number 2 is that convert the amount into Kenyan shillings. Convert the amount into Kenyan shillings at the spot rate. At the spot rate. So you convert that amount into the Kenyan shillings at the spot rate. You convert that amount into the Kenyan shillings at the spot rate. So when you check in the question, you are given the spot rate. Up there in the second paragraph, the current spot exchange rate was $1 US. $1 US. $1 US. It is equivalent to 60 Kenyan shillings. $1 US is equivalent to 60 Kenyan shillings. So we have seen that amount is 714 to 86 US dollars. So when you convert that money into the Kenyan shillings, how much will it be? So you convert that money into the Kenyan shillings. Sorry. It is 42 minutes. Then 867. 857 and 60 like that. So that should be now your step number. That should be now your step number 2. So finally, the step number 3, you deposit the money in the Kenyan bank to earn interest for 1 year. So our step number 3 will now be deposit the amount in the Kenyan bank for 1 year. So our last step, number 3, deposit the amount. Deposit the amount in the Kenyan bank for 1 year. The Kenyan bank. So when you deposit that amount in the Kenyan bank for 1 year, you want to get the future value of that money. You want to get a future value. So future value will be the present value, then 1 plus R, like that. So the present value is the 42. It's the 42, 857. 857, 160. So your amount you have deposited in the Kenyan bank. What is the interest rate for the deposits in Kenya? It is 9%. So 9% is the same as 0.09. 0.09. So that now you come up with that value. So that you come up with that particular value. So that we come up with so that we come up with that particular value. So how much will it be? 40. We are getting 46. 304. So that is now what happens in the money market. So in the money market, you don't have to wait to be paid after the specified period. What you do, you identify your customer's bank, you use your customer as the security to borrow that money. So that money you come and invest in your home country. So when the loan matures, the customer will pay the loan because it's the one whom you have used as the security. Now the money that you took and invested in Kenya, so after now 1 year, it will have grown to how much? Is it more or less than the 800 that you are meant to be given? So that was now about the money market. But they say that from letter 1, determine whether forward market hedge, money market hedge, or the currency option hedge will be the most appropriate. So you have done the forward market, also the money market. Let us now check the one for the option hedge. Let us now check the one for the currency option hedge. Let us now go to the currency option hedge. We can now confirm for the currency option hedge. So when it comes to the currency option hedge, you need to know whether it is a put option or a call option. We shall be able to show whether it is a put option or simply a call option. Whether it is a put option or a call option. The put option or simply a call option. So under that question, first we can write something brief about the currency option hedge. We can write something brief about the currency option hedge. So when it comes to the currency option hedge, you summarize that this involves hedging the amount to be received in the foreign currency, hedging the amount to be received in the foreign currency, hedging the amount to be received in the foreign currency, amount to be received in the foreign currency. Therefore, the company will buy a put option. Therefore, the company will buy a put option, which will give it will buy a put option, which will give it the right, but not obligation, which will give it the right, but not the obligation, the right, but not the obligation to sell the US dollars the right, but not the obligation to sell the US dollars, to sell the US dollars after 1 year, to sell the US dollars after 1 year, either at the exercise price, after 1 year, either at the exercise price, or at the market rate, depending on which is higher, among the two, depending on which is higher among the two, So we need now to compare them, the exercise price and also the future spot rate or the market rate. So let us compare the two prices. Exercise price, we are just checking what we are given. So we have said is the put option. We have specified it is the put option. So when you check under the put option, what are we given as the exercise price? The exercise price for the put option, the exchange rate is $1 is equivalent to what? $1 is equivalent to 60 what? Under the put option, it is in the note number 1. Additional information, 1 year put option on the US are available with the exercise price of how much? 63. It is meant to be $1 is equivalent to 63 Kenyan shillings. That's now for the put option. Then we are comparing that against the future spot rate. We are comparing that against the future spot rate. So for the future spot rate, you are given some details to you in there. In the note number 3. You can see note 3. The future spot rate is estimated in 1 year's time to be how much? $1 is equivalent to $1 is equivalent to 62 Kenyan. So we pick the one which is higher. Among the two, you pick the one which is higher. So the conclusion would be that select the exercise price. Among the two, we select the exercise price. Whereby the exchange rate will be $1 will be equivalent to 63 Kenyan shillings. You pick the one which is higher. So we already know that there were 800,000. There were 800,000 US dollars. So when you convert them into the Kenyan shillings, how much are we going to have at that point? It will be able to give you 50 millions. So 50 millions. But now in the question, under that put option, there was a premium that was incurred. So there is a premium that has been incurred on that put option. So you also calculate the premium cost incurred. You also compute the premium costs incurred. You also calculate the premium costs incurred. So under that note number 1, you can see the put option. The premium is supposed to be what? So the premium is so $1 is equivalent to 4 Kenyan shillings. Is equivalent to 4 Kenyan shillings. But we know there are 800,000 US dollars. So how much will be the premium on that particular question? You also cross multiply at that level. You also cross multiply. so that we get the premium on that figure. So to get the premium on that point. So that premium is how much? So the 3.2 million. So net amount will now be, so the net amount should now be the 50.4 million. We subtract 3.2 million. And now we get the net amount for that. So we can now compare the three options and see where is he going to receive more. So you can now compare the three options to see where is he going to receive more. You compare now the three options. Is it the money market, the forward market, or the currency? It's the forward market. Yeah, so now we make a conclusion by summarizing that. Select the forward market. Select the forward market. You select the forward market. Since it is where you will receive, more cash. Since it is where he will receive more cash. It is where he will receive more cash. So that is now all about that particular Roman letter 1. So there was also now the Roman letter 2. There was also now the Roman letter 2. So Roman letter 2, they were asking you to that advise the prospective investor on the most appropriate hedging strategy if no hedging was to take place. If there was no hedging that was meant was to take place. So if there is no hedging, the exchange rate is normally the future spot rate. If there is no hedging, the exchange rate will be the future spot rate. So maybe you can just write that. If there is no hedging, the exchange rate, the exchange rate is the future spot rate. If there is no hedging, the exchange rate will be the future spot rate. Will be now the future spot rate. If there is no hedging, the exchange rate will be the future spot rate. The exchange rate will be the future spot rate. So when it comes now to that point, you are now looking if no hedging, if there is no hedging that is taking place. So if there is no hedging, you want to know. So the exchange rate should be $1 US. $1 US. Are you able to see the future spot rate in the note number 3? The future spot rate is estimated to be 62 Kenyan shillings. 62 Kenyan shillings. That is in the note number 3. The future spot rate is estimated at that. Then we know it was 800,000 US dollars. So when you convert into the Kenyan shillings, how much will be that figure? So I can see 4.96 million. Yeah, so now you compare that against the other two that the other three that we calculated. It is 49.6. So how much, which one would it be giving a higher value? Yeah, so it means that even if you incorporate the no hedging option, we shall still select the forward market because that is where the investor will receive more. So they were saying the question was in cooperation with what is above. They said that advise the prospective investor on the most appropriate hedging strategy if no hedging takes place. So you compare that if there is no hedging against the other three that we have already dealt with. So the conclusion will be that select the forward market. Select the forward market because it is still where. Select the forward market because it is still where the investor will receive more. Select the forward market since it is still where the investor would receive more. It is where the investor will 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 receive more at that particular point. So that is now how you are meant to use that portion of the question. So at your own free time, check the question for the last sitting. You check the question for the last sitting, question number 4, part C. At your own free time, you will check the question for the last sitting, which was meant to be. So someone is asking to explain why it is the put option. So the issue there is that the currency that you are receiving is in the foreign currency. The currency you are receiving is a foreign currency. So when the firm is hedging on that, it must buy the put option. The put option is the one, when you read through the notes, the put option is the one which will give you the right, but not the obligation to sell. Because I said that once you receive the US dollars, you are going to sell them to the bank, and the bank will do what? Will buy. So the explanation is coming from the reason that the currency is the foreign currency. The currency will be the foreign currency that you have. And because it is the foreign currency, you will not use it in Kenya. You will go and sell to the bank, and therefore the bank will do what? Will buy. So in that scenario, it means that you will be able to buy the put option. Put option is the one which gives you the right to sell. Is the one which gives you the right to sell. So that's why we come up with the put option. That's why we come up with the put option. So that's why we are advised to go to the put option on that level. So that is now when it comes to that level of the question. So I was saying at your own free time, you can attempt the one for the last sitting, the one for question number 4, part C. But you just go through it. Last time when we were in class, I was able to show you to know which one is the buying and which one is the selling. So you try that question. I could have done it, but I wanted to do some 2 other questions which are not on this area, which may also have an impact to you. So you try that question, the one for the last sitting. It had all of them. It had all of them, whereby there was the money market, the forward market, and the currency option. So you check them on the basis of that. So another item I wanted to explain some few details on. I also want us to know something brief about the covered interest hedge. There is also something I want you to know about the covered interest hedge. So just a minute. There is something I also want us to discuss about the covered. So I asked also to check something brief about the covered interest arbitrage. So I also want us to check something brief about the covered interest arbitrage. So there are several questions in your past papers in relation to that. So what happens on that area is simply that what will happen on that level. What happens on that level is simply that you can hedge in terms of the interest rates, the one in Kenya and maybe the one in Tanzania, depending on what happens in relation to that. But before then, we can just write something brief about what we mean by the covered interest arbitrage. So they say that this involves investing in a foreign country. It involves investing in a foreign country. This involves investing in a foreign country and hedging against the exchange rate risk, and hedging against the exchange rate risk, and hedging against the exchange rate risk, hedging against the exchange rate risk by taking into consideration the interest rate, by taking into consideration the interest rate between the two countries, by taking into consideration the interest rate between the two countries, by taking into consideration the interest rate between the two countries. So I want to give you a brief illustration on that, which is not in your past papers, to see how we can use it to hedge against that. So the illustration, you can just write it down. Write down this illustration. You can summarize that. Assume you have 10 million Kenyan shillings. Assume you have 10 million Kenyan shillings to invest for 3 months. Assume you have 10 million Kenyan shillings to invest for 3 months. To invest for 3 months. The current spot rate is 1 Tanzanian shilling is equivalent to 0.058 Kenyan shillings. So 1 Tanzanian shilling is equivalent to 0.058 Kenyan shillings. Then we continue on the same by noting that the 3-month forward rate, the 3-month forward rate is that 1 Tanzanian shilling will be equivalent to 0.06 Kenyan shillings. Will be equivalent to 0.0 Kenyan shillings. Then we continue by noting that the interest rate in Kenya is 20% per annum. The interest rate in Kenya is 20% per annum. The interest rate in Kenya is 20% per annum, while in Tanzania, it is 30% per annum. So the interest rate in Kenya is 20% per annum, while in Tanzania, it is 30% per annum. So now required is that calculate the gain from the covered interest arbitrage. Calculate the gain from the covered interest arbitrage. We calculate the gain on the covered interest arbitrage. So this person has 10 million shillings to invest. So interest rate in Tanzania is more attractive. So you rather go and invest in Tanzania. But we make a comparison. Assuming you invested that money in Kenya, after those particular period, after that period of 3 months, it will have gone to how much? Or if you invested in Tanzania, it will have gone to how much? Then you compare the two. And then you see what will be the gain, because finally you will go to where you will get more. So maybe before we answer, we note that in this case, the interest rate is attractive in Tanzania. In this case, the interest rate is attractive in Tanzania. In this case, the interest rate is attractive in Tanzania. Therefore, the comparison will be done as follows. Therefore, the comparison will be done as follows. The comparison will be done as follows. So we start with when we invest in Tanzania. So the first comparison will be if we invest in Tanzania. You want to compare them. We start with if we invest in Tanzania. So the first one is if invest in Tanzania. So if we invest in Tanzania, we shall first of all convert that money at the spot rate into Tanzanian shillings. So the first step is that to convert the amount. Convert the amount at the spot rate. We convert the amount at the spot rate. We convert the amount at the spot rate. So at the spot rate, I've given the figure that 1 Tanzanian shilling, it will be equivalent to 0.058. It will be equivalent to 0.058 Kenyan shillings. But we know this person had how much Kenyan shillings? 10 million Kenyan shillings. So convert that amount into Tanzanian shillings. You convert that amount into Tanzanian shillings. You cross multiply. So when you do that, you have to pay how much? 172. 172. 400 and round off to 792. So that is now the amount. Then now you go to the next step. So next step, deposit the amount in the Tanzanian bank, or simply invest in Tanzania. Invest in Tanzania. It is for 3 months. So invest in Tanzania. So when you go to Tanzania, now we get the future value. So the future value will be the present value 1 plus R like that. So the future value is simply the present value in the brackets of 1 plus R. So you confirm the interest rate in Tanzania. So you will be required to check. It is 172, then 430, then 793. Then you know the interest rate in Tanzania. It was which percent? But 30% is per annum. This is for 3 months. So take 3 over 12. 3 over 12 multiplied by 30%. 3 over 12 multiplied by 30%. The 7.5%. 7.5. Your figure is equal 7.5%. Yeah, so if it is 7.5%, it is 0.075. Like it. So that will be now the amount after 3 months. That will be now the amount after the 3 months. That will be now the amount after the 3 months. So that amount will be how much? Sorry? 185. 344. So now you convert this amount back to Kenyan shillings at the futures, at the forward rate. So now convert the amount. Convert the amount to Kenyan shillings. Convert to Kenyan shillings after 3 months. So using the forward rate. Using the forward rate. Using the forward rate. So I gave you the exchange rate after 3 months. After 3 months, the exchange rate was what? 1 Tanzanian shilling is equivalent to what? 0.06 Kenyan shillings. But we have seen that amount is 185, 344, 828. So when you convert it into the Kenyan shillings, that amount will be how much? You are getting 11 millions, 120, 690. So that is now if you have gone to invest in Tanzania. So assuming he invested in Kenya, how much will it be? So let us now add there a paragraph by noting that. Suppose the amount was invested in Kenya. Suppose the amount was invested in Kenya. How much would it have been? Suppose the amount was invested in Kenya. How much would it have been? So let us see if invested in Kenya. If invested in Kenya. Let us now check if the amount is invested in Kenya. If amount invested in Kenya. If amount is invested in Kenya. So if that amount was invested in Kenya, how would it be? So we just get the future value. It is the present value, then 1 plus R. So the money he had was 10 millions. So assuming he invested in Kenya. So you know the interest rate in Kenya. The question has given you what percent. So 20% is per annum. So convert it into 3 months. So R will be 3 over 12 multiplied by 20%. So it will be 5%. So you get that future value. You get now that particular future value. Then I want you now to compare the two. When you went to Tanzania and or assuming you stayed to invest in Kenya, where is he going to get more? Yeah, so now from there we can get the arbitrage gain from that. So arbitrage gain will now be equal to. So remember in Tanzania we are getting 11 millions. Was it 120? 11 million 120 690. Then you subtract now this one, which you are saying it is 10 million. So it is 10 millions 500,000. So that's now about the arbitrage gain. That is now what will be able to give you as the arbitrage gain. So there is a question in your past papers which I want us to look at in relation to that. There is a question in your past papers. So November 2020, there is a question number 2 part C. November 2020, there is a question number 2 part C. That should be on page 19. November 2020, there is a question number 2 part C. November 2020, there is a question number 2 part C. November 2020, there is a question number 2 part C. So that question 2 part C on page 19. When you check on page 19, you'll see that kind of the question. So that question was reading that You have recently been hired as a financial manager, a local company incorporated that deals in the import of the building materials from the US. As a person in charge of negotiating the exchange rate, you have noted the following indicative exchange rates and interest rates. So 3-month forward exchange rate is given. The spot exchange rate has also been given. So 3-month interest rate in Kenya is 8%. 3-month interest rate in the US, it is 5.8. So required, assume the amount to borrow is 1 million. So this time around, you are not investing, but you are doing what? Borrowing. So when you borrow, you will be paying interest. So this one, you are going to pay interest on borrowing. So required, determine whether interest rate parity is currently holding. Then Roman letter 2, demonstrate how you will undertake a covered interest arbitrage, assuming that interest rate parity is not holding. Then finally determine the arbitrage profit or gain. The arbitrage profit or gain. But first, let us see what is there about the interest rate parity theory. We were able to check something brief on that. When it comes to the interest rate parity theory, it is simply where we determine the forward exchange rate by considering the interest rate between the two countries. When you are looking for the forward rate, you simply consider the interest rates between the two countries. That's the interest rate parity theory. So under the interest rate parity theory, when determining the exchange rate, we only take into consideration the interest rate between the two countries. So let me show you how to get the forward rate. When you are applying, let us see how to get the forward rate when you are applying that element of the interest rate parity theory. So in the interest rate parity theory, when it comes to the interest rate parity theory, so when it comes to the interest rate parity theory, we say that the forward rate will be given by the spot rate in the brackets of 1 plus the interest rate at home. We also divide by 1 plus the interest rate in the foreign country. So to get the forward, this is the forward rate, will be equal to the spot rate. Then in the brackets, 1 plus, this is the interest rate at home. We divide by 1 plus the interest rate for the foreign country. So when you want to get the forward rate, you simply take the spot rate in the brackets of 1 plus the interest rate at home, divided by 1 plus the interest rate in the foreign country. That now should be able to give you the forward rate. When we are using the interest rate parity theory, we are simply using the interest rate between the two countries in order to get the forward rate, So the spot rate was given. On the spot rate, what are we given there as the spot exchange rate? 100. So it is meant to be 100 in the brackets of 1 plus. What is the interest rate in Kenya? Interest rate in Kenya, it is 8, but convert it into 3 months. You convert it into 3 months. So when you convert it into 3 months, it is supposed to give us around which 3/12 multiplied by 8. 3/12 multiplied by 8, because the interest rate in Kenya per annum is 8%. Ndio nimesema 3/12 multiplied by 8. Hapo amesema 8% per annum. Yeah, so you should convert it into 3 months. So in a poor, which percent? So it will be 2%, which is the same as 0.02. Then we also divide by 1 plus interest rate in the foreign country. So foreign country is now the US. Interest rate in the US, they gave you 5.8% per annum. So convert it into 3 months. You convert it into 3 months. Therefore, 1.45, which is the same as 0.0145. So get that particular forward rate. Get that particular forward rate. Now get that particular forward rate. So I can see 100.54. 100.5. So it is not holding. The one given in the question is 5.5. You see the one given in the question. The one given in the question is 105. The forward rate given in the question is 105. But when you calculate using the interest rate parity theory, you are getting 100.54. So the conclusion is that the theory is not currently holding. It is not currently holding. It is not currently holding. It is not currently holding. Yeah, you can see the one they gave us for the 3 months forward is 105. But when we calculate using that interest rate parity theory, it is going to be 100.54. So that one that is not holding. So that is now how it was meant to be in the Roman letter 1. So when it comes to Roman letter 2, they were now saying that demonstrate how you will undertake a covered interest arbitrage, assuming that the interest rate parity is not holding. When it is not holding, you use the information the way it is. You just use the information the way it is. So there are 2 options there. You can borrow in Kenya or you can go and borrow where? In the US. So we shall compare the 2. Assuming he borrowed in Kenya, how much interest is he going to pay? Or assuming he went to borrow in the US, how much interest is he going to pay? Then now we compare the 2 to get the arbitrage gain. So let's say we start with assuming he borrowed in Kenya. Assuming he borrowed in Kenya. Assuming he borrowed in Kenya. So assuming he borrowed, assuming amount is borrowed in Kenya. Amount is borrowed in Kenya. Assuming amount is borrowed in Kenya. So if the amount is borrowed in Kenya, you want to know how much is he going to pay. So it is the present value, then 1 plus that. So he's borrowing how much? So the amount is borrowing will be 1 million. So if he's borrowing the 1 million after 3 months, that amount is supposed to pay will be how much? So the interest rate in Kenya was 8% per annum, but for 3 months it was what percent? 2%. So 2% was the same as 0.02. So that is now the amount you will be able to pay. That's now the amount you will be able to pay. That's now the amount you will be able to pay if he borrows in Kenya. Obviously, the difference is the interest. So how much is he going to pay? 120,000. So the interest will be now be 20,000. So now assuming he went to US. So let us now assume he went to US. So assuming he borrowed that money in the US, assuming amount was borrowed to the US. So amount is borrowed in the US. So if the amount was borrowed in the US, so first we know he wants 1 million Kenyan shillings. So the first thing, you need to convert that money into the US dollars at the spot rate. So convert the amount at the spot rate into the US dollars. Convert amount at the spot rate into US dollars. So the exchange rate for the spot rate, the exchange rate for the spot rate is that $1 US, it is equivalent to 100 Kenyan shillings. 100 Kenyan shillings. But this person had how much Kenyan shillings? You needed 1 million Kenyan shillings. So when you convert into the US dollars, that amount would be equivalent to how much? It would be 10,000. So US dollars. So now he deposits that money in the US for 3 months. So that money is deposited in the US for 3 months. So that money should be deposited in the US for 3 months. So deposit in US for the 3 months. So what should be the future value for that? What should be the future value for that? So it is the present value, then 1 plus R. So it is 10,000. Then in the US, what is the interest rate for 3 months? We had already calculated. It was 1 point. So itakuwa ngapi? 0.0. So itakuja ngapi? 10,000. 45. So that money would have grown to that amount in the US if it was there. So now after that, convert that money into the Kenyan shillings at the forward rate. So convert at the forward rate into the Kenyan shillings. Convert at the forward rate in Kenyan shillings. Convert at the forward rate into the Kenyan shillings. So the forward rate into the Kenyan shillings. What is the forward rate? It is 105 Kenyan shillings will be equivalent to how much? 1 US dollar. But we have seen that it is 10,000 145 US dollars. So if it is converted into the Kenyan shillings, after those 3 months, you will be paying how much? It will be 1 million. 1,065,000. Sorry? 225. So if he borrowed in US, this is what he will be paying. That is what he's going to pay. But you said in Kenya it is 1,020,000. Yeah, so the difference is simply the interest rate. The difference is meant to be the interest rate. So we get now the arbitrage gain from that. We get now so obvious he must borrow in Kenya, isn't it? Yeah, obvious he must borrow in Kenya, because if he borrow in the US, he's going to pay more in relation to that. So the arbitrage profit, will simply be that extra interest. So the interest is 65 to 25 minus the one in Kenya was meant to be 20,000. So you advise him to borrow in Kenya and make that savings in terms of the interest instead of going to US. So what should be that gain? Nakuja 40 wash. Yeah, so that is now how you will answer that Roman letter 3. That's now on that particular Roman letter 3. That is now meant to be on that Roman letter 3. That should be what should be there on the Roman letter 3. So now after that, there is something else I also want us to check. There is something else I also want us to check still on the arbitrage. There is something we also refer to as the triangle arbitrage. We now also check something brief on the triangle arbitrage. So we check something brief on the triangle arbitrage. We check also something on the triangle arbitrage. So when it comes to the triangle arbitrage, there will be 3 currencies involved. There will be 3 currencies involved, whereby you can have the Kenyan shilling, you convert it to Tanzanian shillings, then from Tanzania to the US dollars, then from the US dollars back to Kenyan shillings. So in the process, you have made a gain, but you need now to check how it happens in the market. You need to check how it happens in the market. So let us summarize something brief about the triangle arbitrage. So for the triangle arbitrage, you simply summarize that it is the action to capitalize. It is the action to capitalize. It is the action to capitalize on the discrepancies, where the quoted discrepancies where the quoted gross exchange rate, 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 the quoted gross exchange rate is not equal to the actual exchange rate, is not equal to the actual exchange rate, is not equal to the actual exchange rate that should exist at equilibrium. Sorry, is not equal to the actual exchange rate that should exist at equilibrium. That should exist at equilibrium. Then we continue by noting that the appropriate cross exchange rate, the appropriate cross exchange rate, the appropriate cross exchange rate, the appropriate cross exchange rate will be determined, given the values of two currencies, given the value of two currencies with respect to, given the value of two currencies with respect to some other currencies. The value of two currencies with respect to some other currencies. Some other two currencies. So I will do a question in the past paper in relation to that. So one of the question, you can check December 2010. So December 2010, there is a question number 4C. There is question number 4, part C. There is a question number 4, part C. Sorry, just a minute. So it is on which page? Mbona hiyo swali? Mko na page 90. Let me confirm So the question was missing, but I've been able to send the question even though it may not be that clear, but we can simply go through it, then we make some clear adjustment before we do the question. So let us go through the question. Let us go through the question. Are you able to see it? Mumeiona kwa group. Is there something that has been sent to the class group? So that I go through it, we make some correction on that. So it is meant to be that question 4 part C, the ones that suppose the pound. You can see where they are saying suppose the pound. So you want to go through that bit of it, where they were saying that suppose the sterling pound is bid at. I want to specify the figures. So that figure is supposed to be that the US dollar, this is the US dollar 1.9. It is 1.9724. 1.7924 in New York. And the euro is offered at. And the euro is offered at. The euro is offered at 1.345. So that one is 1 point. It is meant to be 1.3450. So the euro. So euro and the euro is offered. Not the, but 1 euro is offered. Sorry, not there. 1 euro is being offered, and the euro is being offered at 1.345 US dollars. All of them are in form of US dollars in Frankfurt. In the Frankfurt, And at the same time, the London Bank is offering the pound. They are offering the pound at £1 at €1.4655 like that. So I want to connect those details. On how it was meant to be presented at that element. So the presentation is that £1 is that £1 is equivalent to 1.924 US dollars. Like that. That's now the first one. Then when they continue, they say that €1. So also €1, it is equivalent to 1.3450. Also the US dollars. Like that. And that last part, it is supposed to be, and at the same time, £1 is being offered. So also £1 is being offered at 1.4655 euros. Like that. So that's now the summary of that information in the question. That's now the summary of the information in the question. So now required, they were asking you that show the steps that the trader will follow to earn a riskless profit through the triangle arbitrage, through the triangle arbitrage, assuming the trader begins in New York with 1 million US dollars, with 1 million US dollars. So that is now how the presentation should be. That's now how the presentation should be in respect for that. So in that presentation, there are 3 steps we shall be able to follow. There are 3 steps we shall be able to follow. So you can see that amount is in the US dollars. So it can be converted into the pound or the euro. This amount can be converted into the pound or the euro. It can be converted into the pound or the euro. So the first step, we should come up with what should be the cross exchange rate. So the first step, we need to come up with the cross exchange rate. The cross exchange rate. So to compute the cross exchange rate, because all of them will be in terms of the dollars. All of them will be in terms of the dollars. So you have to know how it will now turn out to be. So to calculate that cross exchange rate, we shall be looking at the value of the dollar in form of the pound. We divide by the value of the dollar in the euro, because this one is higher than that. This is the same dollar, but in pound and also in euro. So when we cross exchange, what should be the value at that particular portion? That's why we are saying the cross exchange rate. So we shall be looking at the value of the dollar in form of the pound, value of the dollar in form of the pound, in pounds. We also divide by value of the dollar in euros. In euros. So I'm doing so because the pound is higher than the euro in respect of that exchange. So you simply come up with 1.9724 divided by 1.3450. 1.9724 divided by 1.3450. You can round it off into, we can round it off into 4 decimal places. Nakuja Utsira 1.46 like that. Yeah, so because the pound is higher than the euro, so this exchange rate means that 1 pound is equivalent to 1.4665 euros. Like that. That's now our cross exchange rate because it is the pound and the euro. So when you are doing that cross exchange rate, it means that 1 pound will be equivalent to 1.4465 euros. But the question has given you the actual exchange rate. So you can see the actual exchange rate. So actual exchange rate, which is this one here. 1 pound. 1 pound is equivalent to what? 1.4655 euros. Now, this is what is given up here, the actual exchange rate. But now when we go to the cross exchange rate, we have it in that particular level. We have it in that area. So when I compare this to that, because in the cross exchange rate, 1 pound is giving me more euros. In the cross exchange rate, 1 pound is giving me more. This one is more than this. Yeah, but in the actual exchange rate, 1 pound is giving me less euros. 1 pound is giving me less euros. So because the pound is the one which are concerned with, that means the pound has been undervalued in the actual exchange rate. This pound has been undervalued in the actual exchange rate because 1 pound is giving you less euros compared to the cross exchange rate. So maybe we can comment that in this case, the pound has been undervalued. The pound has been undervalued. The pound has been undervalued because it is giving less euros. It is giving less euros in the actual exchange rate. It is giving less euros in the actual exchange rate compared to the cross exchange rate. It is giving less euros in the actual exchange rate compared to the cross exchange rate. Therefore, the euro is overvalued. 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 Therefore, convert the dollar to the euro first. Therefore, convert the dollar to the euro first. So we now convert the dollar to the euro. So we shall first convert the dollar to the euro. So we shall first of all convert the dollar to the euro. So when we convert the dollar to the euro, you can see the exchange rate between the euro and the dollar. So 1 euro is equivalent to 1.345 US dollars. But we know there are how much million US dollars? It is 1 million US dollars. So when you convert that into the euros, how much will it be? When we convert that figure into the euros, it will be able to give you around which figure? We get 743, 494, like that. When you round off, it will just be 494. Yeah, so we get those units. So that now will be your step number 1. After establishing which one is overvalued, you go to the one which is overvalued first. Then now we got the step number 2. So the step 2 will now be that convert the euro then to the pound. The step number 2 should now be that convert the euro to the pound. We can now also convert the euro to the pound. We can now also convert the euro to the pound. So the pound and the euro, this one is the pound and the euro. So 1 pound is equivalent to 1.4655 euros. So we use this one that you know. So we have seen that we have 743,494 euros. So when you convert them into the pound, how much should we have at that point? So itakuja ngapi hapo? 507. Sorry. 331 like that. So now after that you got the last step. The last step is now that finally convert the pound to the dollars. Finally convert the pound to the dollars. So finally the step number 3, convert the pound to the dollars. You convert the pound back to the dollars. So now you convert the pound to the dollars. So when you convert the pound into the dollars, so 1 pound is equivalent to 1.9724 US dollars. But now we have seen there are how many pounds? 507,331 pounds. So when they are converted into the US dollars, it will be able to give us around which figure? Hiyo inakuja ngapi? But initially he started with how much millions? Yeah, so initially he started with 1 million. So what is now the arbitrage gain? So to get the arbitrage gain, so now to compute the arbitrage gain. So now to compute the arbitrage gain. Arbitrage gain. So umesema hii imekuwa 1 million. Sorry. 1 million and 1,600,000. Okay, so you minus what was initially there, so that now you get the gain from that. So our gain will now be 660. So the gain so there was a similar question in May 2015. May 2015, there was a question number 5, part C. May 2015, there is a question number 5, part C. May 2015, there is a question number 5, part C. There is a question, so you check on page 68. You check on page 68. So May 2015, there is a question number 5, part C. So May 2015, there is a question number 5, part C. There is a question number 5, part C. There is a question number 5, part C. So that question 5, part C, where they said that you have been provided with the following series of the exchange rates. You have been provided with the following series of the exchange rates for the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, and the pound. So when it comes to require this, assume that you have 1 million. You have 1 million US dollars in cash required. Demonstrate how you could take advantage of this exchange rate to obtain the arbitrage profit. To obtain the arbitrage profit. So I want to make it arranged in an easier way. So that question should be presented this way. So there was an alteration under the when you are printing them. So it should have been in this manner. So it has been written as. So this is how it is presented. Also, the other side, here I'm going to present like that. That is 1.66. 1.66. So this one is the same as that. And the second one is supposed to be So that is how it should be summarized in that manner. So, but we shall only be using one set. We shall only be using one set, because finally all of them will give you the same gain. All of them will give you the same gain. So here is where we are. We only pick this set on your left. So you are meant to use only these values, because finally, whether I pick this or this, they will give me the same gain. They should be able to give you the same gain. So going by what I have on this side, always make the ones which are constant to be on your left. Then these others, they go on the other side. Then also we look at the common currency. The common currency there, which was being converted, was the US dollar. The common currency is meant to be the US dollar. The common currency is meant to be the US dollar. So if it is the US dollar, this is how I will be. So I start with that first part, where they have said that $1 Canadian. So this one is supposed to be, so this one should be Canadian dollar. So $1 Canadian is equivalent to 0.66 US dollar. Then also 1 pound. 1 pound is equal to 1.250 US dollars. Then finally, 1 pound. 1 pound is equivalent to 2.500 Canadian dollar. So I've simply simplified this by making the ones which are constant to be on my left. So that's now how it becomes easier for you to compare them. So this one, I'm not dealing with them because both of them, but after that, maybe I will ask you at your own free time also to apply that set and see what we have. So this is now the information on that area. That's now the information on that level. So the currency in hand is the US dollar. You can see that one is what they want to invest. So the cross exchange rate will take the US dollar in terms of the Canadian dollar and also the pound, because the common currency is the US dollar. Is what you want to do to invest. So because it's the one you want to invest, when we look for the cross exchange rate, the common currency is the US dollar in terms of the Canadian dollar and also the pound. So we start with the cross exchange rate. We start by, so our first step, we want to get the cross exchange rate. We want to come up with the cross exchange rate. So among these two, you see 1 pound is giving me 1.25 US dollars. Then 1 Canadian dollar is only giving me 0.600 US dollars. So I start with the one which is stronger. So the one which is stronger now for me, it is this one, isn't it? Yeah, so I will be taking the US dollar in form of the pound. The US dollar, the value of the US dollar, value of the US dollar in form of pounds, US dollar in pounds, like that. I also divide by the value of the US dollar in Canadian dollars in Canadian dollars. So we simply get the value of the US dollar in the pounds divided by the value of the US dollar in the Canadian pounds. So value of the US dollar in pounds, it is 1.2. It is 1.2500. We divide by the value of the US dollar in form of the Canadian dollar. It is 0.600. So that will give me that figure. So that will give me that value. So 0.2. 0.83 layers. So 0.2. Is it 0.2? It is not 0.2. It is what? 2.8. 2.08. 33 like that. So that means that 1 pound is equivalent to 2.0833 Canadian dollars. So that's now the gross exchange rate. But actual exchange rate, 1 pound is giving you 2.500 Canadian dollars. So you can see 1 pound is giving us 2.500 Canadian. So this is the actual exchange rate. This one is the actual exchange rate, but this one is the gross exchange. So you can see in the actual exchange rate, 1 pound will give you more Canadian dollar compared to the gross exchange. That means that the pound is overvalued. Remember the other question? It was undervalued because it was giving you less in the actual exchange rate. But now it is giving us more in the actual exchange rate. So you first convert to the one which is overvalued before you go to the one which is undervalued. So the other question, you remember? Yeah, it was the one which was on this side was undervalued because it was giving you less in the actual exchange. That's why you see it was undervalued. But now it is overvalued because in the actual exchange rate is giving you 2.5, but in the gross exchange rate is 2.08. So the first conversion, you first convert the stronger currency. We shall first convert the stronger currency. So now we say that convert the US dollar, convert the US dollar into pounds, into the pound. So we convert now the US dollar into the pound. So that conversion will be that we use this exchange rate. So 1 pound is equivalent to 1.2500 US dollars. We use this one that we are putting, not the cross exchange rate. So 1 pound is equivalent to that. But we know there were how much US dollars? It was 1 million US dollars. So convert into the pounds. You convert that figure into the pounds. Give me 800,000. So it will give you 800,000. Then now after that, you convert. After that, now you convert the pound. So now you say convert the pound into Canadian dollar. Into Canadian dollar. You then convert that pound into the Canadian dollar. So what we do at that point, we come here, the pound against the Canadian dollar. This is the pound against the Canadian dollar. So 1 pound is equivalent to 2.500 Canadian dollar like that. But we have seen that there are how many pounds? 800,000 pounds. So convert that into the Canadian dollars. We convert that into the Canadian dollars. We convert that into the Canadian dollars. We convert that into the Canadian dollars. So once you have done that, now finally the last step, you then convert. Then convert the Canadian dollars. Canadian dollars into the US dollars. US dollars. So when you are converting the Canadian into the US dollar, one Canadian dollar is equivalent to how much? 0.66 US dollars. So Trapata, how much US dollars at this point? It is 2 million. So when you convert, imekuwa Canadian dollars, 2 million Canadian dollars. So when you convert into the US dollars, 1.2 million. So now you can get the gain out of that. We can now get the gain out of that. But now come with the gain from that here. So the gain now be 1.2 minus what was initially before. That now give you 200,000. So even if you use the other figures, they will still give you the same value. So you are only meant to use one set to get the gain. The gain will be the same. So I don't want to do the other one because it is the same concept. So you have fewer notes to read for that. But it will still give you 200,000. It will still give you a gain of 200,000. I'm doing that. You should not be a qualified CPA when you don't know the exchange rates. But I must show you. I can't take you to the market knowing that you have not done this. You should go to the market knowing that you have also known how to go about those exchange rates. You should go to the market knowing that you must also know those details of the exchange rate. But consistently, the examiner has been coming. If they don't give you the forward money market and the rest, they may come to this part. They may come to this arbitrage or triangle. So that should now be the conclusion of what I was interested in covering with you people. That is now the conclusion of what I was interested in covering with you people. So the remaining part, mnafanya exam lini? Mnafanya Tuesday. So the remaining part, I'll simply guide you what you should do now, and then when you go for your exam, because for now, we should not do more, we should not be able to do more other questions because we do not make any direction. So the summary of what I want you now to do, remember that your exam has got 5 questions. Your exam has got 5 questions. So in those questions, there are theory questions and computation questions. They have the theory and the computation. So my advice to you, I know those theory questions, sometimes they may be complicated, but what do, don't leave a theory question hanging. Don't leave any theory question hanging. Try and write something on it. You try and write something on it. And the advice is normally that you attempt all the theory questions also on the basis of that. So budget your time during the exam. Make sure that you spend not more than 35 minutes on the question. Then you go to the next, because that way you will be able to attempt all of them. Then of late, the time frame for preparation for the exam has not been sufficient, because previously I would finish the syllabus on time, then I take 1 month to do the revision. And that's why now the performance is becoming slightly an issue, because we have finished today discussing, then on Tuesday you'll be doing the exam. But previously we could finish the syllabus 1 month for revision, whereby you go through all those other items. But now for us, we are not able to go through all those other items that we discussed, but we have completed the syllabus fully in relation to what you are supposed to do. So my request to you at this particular point is that those theory questions, make sure that you budget time for them. You budget the time for them and write something on it. Then another major weakness that you students normally make in the exam, your booklet ni kubwa sana. If I have started with question 1, now you gonna part A, B, and C, and I have done part A on the first page. So part B should be after A, then part C after B. But some of you utafanya your question 1, part A peke yake, then uanze question 2. Pia ufanye part A, so that part B of question 1 itapatikana huko nyuma. You see that mistake that you make? This person may not be able to be in a position to combine your marks together. So what do? Leave enough space. If you wish to finish and come back, leave enough space so that question 1 is combined together. So that question 1 is combined together. So don't do question 1, then do question 2, then part B of question 1 is found. So do it in that manner. Then in the process, I've said that all those theory questions, they don't require any standard answer, but just write something on it to ensure that you have a key knowledge on the same. Then what normally now differentiate the candidates are the computation. What normally differentiate the candidates are normally computation. If you ever try and attempt 3 questions on the computation correctly, you have already passed that paper. If you ever try to attempt those 3 computation questions correctly, you have already passed, because the theory part, they don't have a fixed concept for that. Then in their revision, they normally test you in math. They normally test you in a manner in which we apply those topics in the market, on how you normally apply those topics in the market. So The first topic to the summer, it was portfolio theory. It was portfolio theory and CAPM. Portfolio theory and it is portfolio theory and CAPM. So last sitting, they did not test this, but they tested on that CAPM. Last sitting, they did not test on the portfolio theory, but they tested on CAPM. They tested on CAPM. They were able to test you on CAPM, the last sitting paper. So they did not test you on the portfolio theory, but they tested you on CAPM. So the CAPM part was question number 2. The CAPM part was the question number 2, where they only asked you to show whether it is super efficient or what? Inefficient. So this time around, I'm hopeful they must give you a question on the portfolio theory. Then on the portfolio theory, it is normally direct, where they normally ask you to calculate expected return, the standard deviation, the coefficient of variation, or the covariance. You remember that question? Yeah, so an example of the question, maybe I can quote you an example of that nature of the question from your past papers. I can be able to quote an example of that kind of the question in your past papers. So there is a question for you in the sitting of November 2019. November 2019, question number 3, part B. November 2019, question 3, part B, where they ask you to get expected return on the portfolio correlation coefficient between X and Y, the portfolio risk, and also the reduction in what? In the risk. So those who have the current past papers, it's on page 24. When you check on page 24, you have that question for November 2019. There is a question number 3, part B. They have not tested of late on that element. That's why I'm requesting you, if you have time, see how that question was being done on that level, how the question was being done. So last sitting, there was no question on that part of the portfolio theory. So what they did, they gave you a question on CAPM. They gave you a small question on CAPM on that level. So now that it was not tested much in the last sitting, that's why I'm asking you to put more emphasis on this particular question. So when it comes to CAPM, sometimes we learn something about the portfolio performance measures. So remember those performance measures, just go through them. The portfolio performance measures, just go through them and see how they will be able to work for you. But now, when it comes to CAPM, CAPM is not only in this topic, it collides with those other topics. So that's now on this element. Then the next topic that has consistently been tested, there is the topic for the mergers and acquisition. Mergers and acquisition. Then they also combine it with the restructuring. The restructuring or reorganization. The restructuring or reorganization. So they test both computation and theory on that part. Mergers and acquisition, also restructuring and reorganization. That restructuring and reorganization. Last sitting, they tested on both. Last sitting, they tested on both the restructuring and the reorganization. And most questions were on the theory part. But when you check question 2, part B and part B, it was basically on that mergers and acquisition. So get some time, you read the theory part on this and also that structure. So that's now another topic they have consistently tested you on. Then the other key topic is the capital structure theories. The capital structure theories. The capital structure theories. So capital structure theories has been borrowing heavily on CAPM. Has been borrowing heavily on CAPM. How to use the security market line. So check those M and M. Either last time it was M and M on the dividend irrelevance theory. It was M and M on the dividend irrelevance theory. But there are others. The one for the bankruptcy and agents. You remember that part? Yeah, so get to know those items because there is no exam they will test you without also this particular topic. So these are the key ones which you must be able to have some small knowledge on in order to get at least 50% of the paper. Then, now they have also been weighing down on these methods of dealing with risk. The methods of dealing with the risk. So this topic has got simulation analysis, sensitivity analysis, decision tree diagrams. So the last 4 sittings, they have tested continuously. Simulation that came last sitting. Then the others have been decision tree diagrams. So we have a feeling that they must test you this time around on the sensitivity analysis. We have a feeling that they must test you on the sensitivity analysis of that question. So we have done enough questions on that element, even though some of you did not finish the small part of it. But because of the time, I could not be able to go to this. But what we have done was enough for the sensitivity analysis. This one has also been key for them on how to deal with the issues to do with methods of dealing with the risk in the capital budget. So those are the key issues whereby they can give you a question with a minimum of 15 marks on, a minimum of 15 marks on. So the other area that they are not consistent on, remember the methods, like now adjusted NPV, there was a replacement analysis, and so those ones just have the general knowledge on. Just have the general knowledge on those others. But the key ones are these ones that will be able to make up your paper. Then what we have been doing, they are normally tested, especially question 5, those exchange rates, they normally test them. But the black underscores in the car sana, they have not tested anything on that. So you can also just review them. So I want us to stop there with the little information that we know. If you can be able to sit down from now and the time of the exam and go through them, they will make some sense on that level. So I hope now all will be okay at that point. So and we share success from Tiani. So success for exam. So let us stop there. So you try and see what will come out of that. Because you have fully completed everything on that paper. Just try to go through them. It will make sense for you. So you can stop there.